Let's dive in. Definitely one of the more unusual looking and certainly higher end bikes that we've gotten to test here at the magazine. This is, of course, the Deviate. Scotty, tell us about the bike that you've been riding for the last couple of months, man. This thing, there's a lot to unpack, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a super cool bike. Deviate Cycles is probably maybe a lesser known brand in Australia, being a Scottish brand. So,
massive in Europe.
Yes, big in Europe. Actually, when I was in Whistler recently, I've seen a few crew riding these before I got a chance to ride this one. But the cool cats from Super Sports Australia have been bringing in these in for a little while now, so they're starting to ramp things up. Yeah. And yeah, this is the Claymore. This is their big enduro bike.
So yeah, the Deviate range is quite small. We mentioned before, Super Sports have just started repping these in Australia. So we've been checking out the range. This is the longest travel bike, is that right, in the range?
Correct.
And right here, it's in the 2.9 configuration, but we do believe they're gonna have 27.5 rear ends coming, so these guys are gonna be mulletable as well. As we mentioned though, in this configuration, like you've been riding, 2.9. Mate, hit us through the travel numbers with this thing. What has it got front and rear?
So 165 back, 170 front stock, but it's also capable of taking a 180 fork as well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Probably the most striking thing that you know, obviously high pivots and idlers are becoming quite common, I guess, in bikes, but these guys have really done an impressive job in terms of the way they've managed to package it into the design of that frame. Tell us a bit about what they've achieved there and kind of how it is first impressions and how it feels after a few months.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a fan of the old MX wheels. With that, with that said, they do offer this, as you just said, in an MX wheel option. This is a full 29er. Frame alone, like when you look at one of these in the flesh, like the guys aren't mucking around.
Bro, the lines of this carbon is nice.
They are super neat and
beefy too.
Yeah, 100%. Like a nice little linkage, like underneath where the shock actually pokes from the frame. So the shock is obviously down nice and low, as you guys can tell at home. So as a lot of you know, with bikes these days, they're also good. So, but where you put the weight on the bikes, it makes a big difference to how balanced the bikes are. Sure. So that's one thing I noticed about this bike. Is very, very well balanced bike. Feels really good on the trail, and obviously the high pivot. I've ridden a few high pivots now, and there's a few subtle changes with this bike and some of the other high pivots I've ridden. So, but I really like it.
Tell us a bit about some of the changes. Now, high pivots tend to get a little bit of flack for not being the best at pedaling. Obviously, the high pivot's really designed to get that rear wheel moving in the way that they want it to, away from objects and being kind of letting itself more like descending down the trail. Not always the best for climbing back up a trail. How does the Deviate kind of pedal?
That's probably the advantage of this one, and that's one thing I noticed with some other high pivot bikes, especially in this length of travel, so to speak, being an enduro bike. They tend to be like a bit more of a sit and spin. They're definitely not, a cross-country bike, but they weren't designed to be. This is similar, it's definitely a bigger bike, sit and spin up the hill. However, it does climb a fair bit better than some of the other longer travel high pivots I've ridden.
That's funny. The reason I asked Scotty that is that's one thing he's been commenting quite a lot over the last few weeks we've been riding this thing. He's like, bloody hell, this thing pedals so much better than a lot of the high pivots we've ridden before. So obviously Deviate done a really impressive job there. Now we've mentioned before, it's obviously designed to be an enduro bike. We've got the coil shock in the back there, thinking gravity. Mate, is it a bit of a pig for just as a regular trail bike, or is it like pure hardcore enduro, would you say?
I've been out for submissions, even like today out filming, like we've punched up a couple of hefty climbs, Blake and I, and I got to the top of the climb, like you said, sit and spin. It does actually climb reasonably well for this style of bike, and being a high pivot, obviously in that style of linkage, that style of rear end, yes, they have a reputation for being a bit of a slug, but I wouldn't call this a slug. I think this pedals pretty akin to the other enduro bikes I've ridden of late as well. So
fair enough.
Pretty good.
A lot of travel, especially with the plushness of that rear shock. Now, obviously, we're going to be checking out the rest of the Deviate range, which we're pretty psyched about, so keep an eye on our channel. Super Sports offer the Claymore in a bunch of different specs. This one's a bit of a hybrid spec, but they also offer them as frame only. So definitely lots of options there. It's worth jumping onto their website to check out the range that's available and that will be coming available. They're loading more and more bikes on as we're heading into summer 2024-25. Yeah, definitely one of the more exciting brands, Deviate Cycles. We've really been impressed with our first kind of bite into the brand, and we're looking forward to checking out Yeah, there are other bikes, I guess.
Yeah, there's a bunch of little quirks about this bike I really like. Bike aesthetically looks amazing.
Oh yeah.
Very, very well put together. So far, I've ridden a fair bit already. I'm pretty impressed with the bike, and in the 20-year anniversary of Revo,
A new mag,
a ton of detail on this thing.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye out for our latest edition. Scotty's got a 4-page review in there. It goes really deep, right down the rabbit hole on how this thing excels and everything else he's discovered over the last few months. So cheers for watching, and stay tuned to our channel for plenty more.
Cheers.